how are you? And if you've seen the video title, it says, in defense of HP Lovecraft, we are not defending racism. Before anybody clicks on this that doesn't know us, because anybody who does obviously knows we're not racist, but we are not defending racism. We're just giving a little common sense perspective to this whole everybody hates HP Lovecraft because he's racist thing, and some things to consider about him or anybody else. I just don't understand this whole cancel and hate culture. I call it hate culture too, because they want to make a better world, but they're so into hating everything. I don't know, it doesn't help. Can't make anything better with hate. You can make it better with change, but not force or hate. So I don't think anybody's personality really needs to factor into their art. It can be reflected, but if, you know, I don't like someone and they wrote a really good book, the book is still going to be good whether I like them or not. And I think that is fair and reasonable and how it should be. It's the same thing as if I don't like a book, I shouldn't dislike the author. Maybe I would think the author is great. I know a lot of people who don't write well and I like them. I write well, you might not like me, you might, who knows. Don't care. But if you guys are new, just subscribe, check out our spooky playlists. We're Morticia, Gomez, and Slappy. He's out. He's just been like not motivated for videos lately, so he hasn't come out. But he decided to come out with this to defend Big H, as we call him on our local TV show. It's called Frightfully Brilliant. We have a whole playlist for that too, where you can see us talk about Big H. I was gonna get a Cthulhu plush that we have in the bedroom for Gomez to hold, and I forgot. We were gonna have Cthulhu up in here to defend Big H. Damn it. Forgot Cthulhu. It would have been good too. Just imagine he's holding a big Cthulhu octopus winged cool plushie. Okay, he's an elder god, he's badass. But really, my issue with the whole Lovecraft thing is what I just told you. Art and a person's personality should be separate. You're not supporting racism if you like someone's art, and he's dead, so he's not going to get money from his book sales anyway, and you're only hurting yourself to decide you don't like him and not read his cool horror stuff. Like, I don't know. Plus, we have to keep it real. People want to rewrite history because they don't like the way something was. It's more intelligent to try to understand why it was that way and the events that shaped it and then the events that changed it for the better or for the worse, whichever the situation happens to be. But if we're talking about a time of racism, events have changed it for the better because obviously we're not as racist as things were back in the day. But Big H, as I call HP Lovecraft, I can't remember why I did that first on the show, but maybe I had a drink, I don't know, yeah. But Big H, H to the P to the craft. Okay, so Big H to the P was in the 20s and 30s. He grew up in the early 1900s, because he was like in his 30s and the 30s, right, when he died? Yeah. Something like that. So he grew up in a time of prevalent racism. How do I know things were prevalently racist? Because there were still segregated schools, because schools didn't become fully unsegregated, you know, where everything was cool and gelling, more or less, until the 60s, and that's more or less. So it's not right, it's not okay, but it's what it was, and he was not the only person of that time who had views that a lot of the people now would not agree with, because they don't fit with the current culture. But this is a different culture then. And I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying a lot of people thought that way, and probably other people who wrote classic lit and, you know, whatever, and their work shouldn't suffer and they shouldn't be vilified for what in those days wouldn't have been a big deal. I mean, things are going to change in 100 years, and what you're doing now could be a big deal that people hate, and it should be that, you know, the culture is taken into consideration. And I think that it's just ignorant to overlook. Nobody thought it was a big deal. He wasn't wrong back then, so he doesn't need to be made wrong now. He's not Hitler. Hitler's wrong no matter what, right? Whatever time you put this guy in, if you take him back to the 10th century, if you put him now, Nero, you know, I mean, he was wrong no matter when, right? Like, there's no time that Nero's going to be gelling.
Yeah, some things are above cultural conventions.
Yes, thank you, Gomez. You say it so well. And that's fine. And those people are bad, no matter, I don't care what's happening, they're still bad, period, dot, bad. But Lovecraft, again, his views were just a lot more common, so you can't hate the world. It was what it was, and again, I'm not defending it. I am definitely not racist. So, you know, I mean, I have mixed race in my family, so I'm not defending this at all. I'm just saying that you have to keep it real and see what was happening, and that he wasn't really out of his norm, so it's not fair to single him out and punish him and pretend that things were different. The people who weren't racist back then were probably more remarkable and more noticeable.
True.
So it's not fair to take him out of his norm and hold him up to yours. He wasn't taught better, he wasn't exposed to better because, you know, again, segregation was going on, and it was, you know, pretty much what it was. And it's not right to, when someone wasn't educated well, and they probably were held in an ignorant state, kept in an ignorant state because of that, it's just not right to say, well, we're going to take them aside from most people probably thought like them, right or not, and we're going to judge and hate him. So, other than that, and the fact that literature needs to have nothing to do with a person, because to me, disliking a person and then boycotting their art is the same as if I don't like a book, I'm going to boycott the author. You know, I hate you now because your book sucked. It's the same thing, right? Just a different side of the coin.
Yeah.
So if your book was great and then I find out this thing about you, I suddenly hate your book, it's stupid because it has nothing to do with the art. It does not. If a singer, as long as the singer isn't supporting Hitler, says something I disagree with, I'm still going to like the song. Same thing with the books, you know. There's a lot of singers I watch interviews of that I wouldn't hang out with because they seem ignorant or annoying or whatever, but I'm still going to listen to their music. So, yeah, that's my stand. Gomez, what are your thoughts? Other than, I mean, we usually agree, so I'm sure you agree, but...
Yeah.
Obviously you agree. I'm perfect.
Why disagree? Why disagree? The best of authors have to separate themselves from what they do. For example, C.S. Lewis, I could not have guessed that his books are supposed to be some kind of a Christian type of based fiction. Whenever I think about Christianity, I don't have any negative things to say, but even if I did, I would not have guessed just by reading about Aslan that he...
We're supposed to be Jesus.
Yeah, like...
Now, I grew up in the Bible Belt for a minute, yo. Not all the time, but for a minute. And if you're a Christian, more power to you and everything, but I'm not. And I still love me some Narnia and Aslan. I do. I would totally just ride his back and hug him and go to Narnia and turn into an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
If he's showing up at my house, I'm still going.
Adorable!
Yeah. So, even if one does say, well, I'm not into Christianity, I'm just not. I respect Christians and I respect their beliefs as long as they respect mine. A lot of the ones I met in the South did not. That's another thing. But, I mean, it's a great series, no matter what.
Yeah.
Good point.
And you like it on its own sake. And I have another example that is directly opposite. There is a very interesting book written by a very convicted racist. There is an author called Asa Carter. And he was writing this book from the perspective of an African-American character. And throughout this book I was completely confident that he was sympathetic to that character, that the narrator represents his views. And then later in this course that I took, I discovered that this guy is actually maybe a certified KKK member, and like he was with the real alt-right, like really hardcore racist, supported racist opinions.
No, I never knew this. I love hearing stuff from him in videos because we don't talk it out a lot and script it because we keep it real, you know. So we're just like, let's do this. Let's talk about this. So we're here. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was extra cool for me, and I'm like, how can you... I was impressed. I always believed that authors and their work should be separated, but when I saw this example, this even took me by surprise, and I'm like, how can you write like that?
Well, maybe he was channeling. We channel when we write. That means I believe I hear it from somewhere else, and I'm not saying aliens or whatever, but I believe that someone is telling me the story from some dimension that exists, that this has happened to them, and I'm hearing it and writing it. And I used to think I was crazy until I heard other very famous authors say the same thing. Like, I'm waiting to hear from the character what happens next and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm not crazy. Yay. So I can really not approve or not like. I wrote an entire book, and I did not like the main character. He had nothing to do. It wasn't about race. He was a fairy. He's a fairy and a dark mage, and I didn't like him at all. And I like him now. I had to get to know him, but I wrote the whole book and didn't like him. But other people that read the book liked him, and I was very happy that my dislike did not come out in the book. Because some authors, you can tell they're not being fair to a character because they don't like them. They're not really telling their side right, and you have to kind of glean it. And I've liked characters that I knew the author didn't like, and I could see it in their writing. They don't like this character. Like JKR admitted she doesn't like Severus, and I am the female Severus, and he didn't like Lily Potter. But we're moving on. So the point is, you know, I've been able to tell, like, you don't like this person, you're not even getting them, you're not really listening to them. So whenever people would tell me they liked Dara, my Dark Mage, I was like, yes, it meant a lot to me that I stayed out of it. So this author, you're saying, stayed out of his character's story with his own racist views. He was not in it.
Yeah, and that for me makes the difference. If you are able to separate yourself from the message you're writing, if when I read your book, I don't hear you saying like, let's discriminate against this kind of people or kill them or something even worse, then I can still read this book as if it was written by somebody independent, irrelevant, objective, somebody I don't have any information about. And that's what we refer to in literary circles as death of the author. The idea is that the author does not exist to interpret the work, we only use the work itself and its rules, the rules established. And of course, it would have changed if the work itself was giving us that message of discrimination and laying it out that this race is supposed to be inferior to others. Of course that would be different, but that was not the case in this specific book, and for that reason I suppose I would still read more of this author if it came to me, even now that I know who he is, because he doesn't write as if it's coming from that crazy racist KKK member that nobody would like in normal life.
Yeah, we don't have to hang with him. He's not putting himself in his work, which I do respect. No matter who you are, what you believe, I respect that.
Yeah. And the reason I brought this example is because for me, HP Lovecraft also, I read his work and it is cosmic horror. He expresses all of his psychological fears in a very subtle form. I cannot say that he is afraid of foreigners necessarily, or he thinks them inferior, or he thinks they're stupid. I cannot say that reading about Cthulhu, it's not that apparent to me. So because of that, whatever it is that he believes doesn't matter to me. And there are many authors that I disagree with. I could name Stephen King and Michael Moorcock and many others like that. I don't agree with all of their opinions, but I can still read their story because their story does not set me off. It does not give that message that you're supposed to hate somebody or other.
And you know, we have read writers that you can tell what they think in their writing.
Yeah, sometimes it's very apparent.
Yeah, and it's like, no, it's just, I don't need to hear your opinions, like, in your story. I don't need that. And you can tell they're trying to shove an agenda.
Yeah, I think a great work is not supposed to just address one category and totally agree with everything that this category believes and nothing else. A great work maybe should appeal to general human values and more than one kind of people can agree with. I think very many people really like Lord of the Rings regardless of their political beliefs. They can stand in any camp but still appreciate that work.
Well, I think some people have decided now that it didn't have enough women and didn't have women. They want to tear it down, they can find anything.
Yeah, I guess so.
People that want to be unhappy and find something to offend them will tear anything. They'll find a Bible, like anything, you know, just like...
Yeah, maybe some concrete examples are less relevant now than they used to be.
But I think Lord of the Rings, I get what you're saying. Normal human minds all love Lord of the Rings, okay? Yes, agreed. And it's timeless. I think Lord of the Rings, as well as HP Lovecraft, stand the test of time, that it's going to be relevant in 100 years. It could have been relevant 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it art, and it makes it steadily, like, good.
Yeah, art independent of particular cultural trend, of particular author opinion, of author upbringing. It's art on its own sake.
I can't remember which singer said this. I was watching singer interviews and somebody said, like, they're like, are you going to write a song about this? And he was like, no, I don't write a song until 50 years later. You know, whatever, I wouldn't want to do that because I want to think outside, like I want to be distanced from this situation. Like he wrote a song about World War II in like the 80s, or I don't know what he did, 90s. It's like, you know, I want to be away from it to get enough perspective to be accurate, you know? Like not to be, and I want it to be historically, I want it to matter in 100 years. And if you're writing about something now, from the perspective of your heated thoughts now, it's not going to matter in 100 years because stuff changed and nobody cares.
Yeah. So yeah, objectivity and art, and in some sense, if you are canceling somebody whose opinion does not speak, you are denying yourself a different perspective, so long as it's pretty unbiased and objective. If the author does not inject himself, then you are denying more yourself than that specific person. You're not punishing them. It might seem that way. You're objecting to them or something, but in actuality, you're depriving yourself of their art.
We call that cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
It's just silly. And he's not writing racist propaganda, so it should have nothing to do with Big H. And he's dead, so you don't have to hang out with him and hear him talk anything you disagree with. Like, he was a weird guy. I really enjoy his work, but I doubt I would enjoy hanging out with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to tell him either specifically.
Yes, you could tell him how to have sex with his woman, because apparently he had to have a book or several given to him by his woman before they could get freaky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy had mental problems. He had other stuff going on, so he wasn't like this perfectly put together dude who was racist. He wasn't perfectly put together at all.
And that's what makes his work so unique. In a sense, he expressed all of his strangenesses and insecurities and fears and nightmares into his fiction. That's why horror was so very suitable as a genre for him to express himself.
It's a healthy way to channel.
Yeah, and I think Dean Koontz said he still does it today, where he expresses his demons through his work too. So it is still a concept that's doable even in our time.
I used to do that through music. I guess I don't have any now. I'm more channeling and writing other people's. I don't really have any. Is that good? Is that bad?
We all grow.
Yeah. So I've grown out of any of my issues.
You're more mature now. You don't need
Oh my God.
So yeah, Big H.
Big H. He's good. He's all good. Read Big H. Who cares what he thought as a person? Like I said, all these people that are glorified, if you hold them up, nobody's perfect and nobody's above the certain kind of cancel culture's cancellation. I mean, they even got Ellen, which I could care less about Ellen. But I'm saying you can, if you're looking to dislike, you will find it in anybody if you just get to know them. And the people that are held up and glorified, you haven't spent a week with them. And they probably aren't telling you what they think. When they seem perfect, you can't please everybody all the time, so they're really not perfect. That's the thing. Like, that's how they treated Ellen, like she was perfect. The whole Ellen DeGeneres now sucks thing is what I'm referring to. And it's like nobody's perfect. When they're too good to be true, they usually are. So if you see a flaw in them, it's good. It's okay. I recently told somebody that I think, they're like, how do you know if somebody's your real friend? And I think when you have a fight with them and you work it out, they're your real friend. Because if you can't fight and work it out, then you don't have that much of a friendship. And it's the same with like, if you like someone or if you don't like someone, if you can't find something you guys disagree on, even as your favorite artist or something, and still like them anyway, then you really don't like them that much. And I think the society, just where somebody can't think something that you think isn't cool and still have the right to exist. I mean, what if you think things that other people aren't cool with, you know, you don't want to be canceled. So you just have to say, well, that's an effed up thought, Big H, but your books are still good, so work on that. If he were still alive, I mean, you know, like... Yeah. And it's hard to grow and change when you get canceled, you know, so if there's someone who is in today's culture that's being canceled, you know, I just think that if I got canceled for something I did, I'm probably going to dislike you more, and I'm not going to be open to growing and changing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, this is the culture I didn't like. Now I really hate you. I was right. Even if I'm wrong, you know, it's just the attitude of when you're being punished instead of like enlightened, or, you know, would you at least think about this perspective in a nice way or whatever. They're not going to. They're just going to get mad and resentful. And I think another thing cancel culture is going to do is make people lie a lot. So if you want people to lie and pretend to be somebody else and be afraid, that's what it's going to do. And a lot of people are afraid to say what they think anymore, which makes it where they're probably somebody you wouldn't agree with, but they're not dumb enough to say it out loud. And that's not the same thing as being somebody cool. So I just think everybody should be accepted for who they are, and if you disagree with something, tell them that's effed up and move on. I mean, like, that's all you can really do. If you're in a sane, stable, logical world at all. But go read some HP Lovecraft, you guys. Until next time.
Listen to the call of Cthulhu.